You did not have a bad day on the water. You had a biology problem that nobody explained to you. Here is what actually happened every time you sat in one spot for 3 hours, and the fish stopped biting after the first 20 minutes. The largemouth in that cove did not leave. The catfish did not hear your boat and swim away. They went into a refractory state. And that state has a very specific biological cause that lure companies, and fishing guides have been financially motivated to keep off your radar. When a fish feeds, it triggers a cortisol response in the body. Cortisol is the same stress hormone that exists in humans. In fish, it regulates energy expenditure during predatory behavior. The act of striking, chasing, and consuming prey is metabolically expensive. So immediately after a feeding event, the fish's system releases cortisol, and that cortisol suppresses further feeding behavior. Not because the fish is full, not because conditions changed, but because the biology is forcing a recovery window. That window in largemouth runs between 18 and 22 minutes, under normal water temperature conditions. For catfish, the recovery window is slightly longer, averaging between 24 and 30 minutes. Dr. Susan Krauss at the University of Illinois published research in 2014 tracking cortisol cycles in freshwater predatory species after feeding events. Her team found that 61% of largemouth in an active feeding group showed complete suppression of strike behavior within 4 minutes of a successful catch. 61%, not slowed down, not less aggressive, fully suppressed. The other 39% continued feeding briefly, but at significantly reduced rates. By the 20-minute mark across the entire study group, active feeding had returned to baseline in the majority of individuals. The window opens, the window closes, and then after roughly 20 minutes, it opens again. This is not a theory about fish mood or weather conditions. This is a documented hormonal cycle that resets on a predictable timer. Think about what that means for the way most people fish. You find a good spot, you get 3 or 4 bites in the first 15 minutes, then nothing. So you try a different lure. You go deeper. You slow your retrieve way down. You speed it up. You sit there for another 45 minutes. Convinced the problem is your presentation. While every fish in that cove is sitting in a biological off switch, waiting for a timer you did not know existed to reset. The lure was never the problem. The location was never the problem. The clock was the problem. And nobody who sells lures or fishing guides who charge by the full day has any reason to hand you that information directly. A guide who teaches you to rotate spots every 20 minutes is a guide who just cut his own revenue argument in half. Because now you do not need him to know where all the fish are. You just need to understand the cycle and move on schedule. Before I get into the rotation system, scan the QR code in the top left corner or click the first link in the description. Inside the angler's vault, there are 8 modules covering the complete timing system: Solinar theory, barometric pressure, water, temperature, and reading water without electronics, plus a full annual calendar with moon overlays for every single month. The biology in this video pairs directly with the timing system in Module 1. Stay here because the spot rotation method coming up is what turns this into a system. Mike Tanner ran guided fishing trips on the Lake of the Ozarks for 18 years. He charged $350 per full day per person, and he was good at his job. He knew every productive cove, every submerged point, every current seam on that lake. But he told me something 2 years into his retirement that stuck with me. He said the single most consistent thing he did on every single trip was move his clients off a spot after 20 minutes, whether they had stopped biting or not. Not when the bite slowed down, not when they had not caught anything for a while. He moved them on a watch. Every 20 minutes, he never explained why to clients, because explaining why meant explaining that the entire premise of staying in one spot for a full paid day was wrong. The same cortisol research tracked catfish alongside largemouth, and the numbers tell an equally clear story. 43% of catfish in the study group entered a measurable refractory state within 6 minutes of a successful feeding event. For a bottom feeder that invests significant energy in locating and consuming prey, that recovery window is the body protecting itself from burning reserves too fast. Catfish that had just fed actively showed dramatically reduced chemical sensitivity. The same scent signals that triggered aggressive investigation 20 minutes earlier produced almost no response during the refractory window, which means your bait, sitting on the bottom of the same hole, is not just being ignored by fish that moved away. It is being ignored by fish sitting 2 feet from it, fish whose sensory system has been chemically dialed down. While you wait and wonder what changed, nothing changed except the clock. And the clock is now the most important piece of equipment you do not own yet. Here is the rotation system built directly around the biology. You need at minimum 3 spots within reasonable casting, or paddling distance of each other. Not 3 spots on different ends of the lake. 3 spots within 5 minutes of travel from each other, a main bank pocket, a submerged point, and a secondary cover zone work well as a rotation. You fish the first spot for no more than 20 minutes from the moment of your first bite. Not 20 minutes from when you arrived, 20 minutes from the moment the fish start responding. If they respond immediately, your clock starts immediately. At the 20-minute mark, you leave regardless of whether the bite has slowed. You move to the second spot and repeat. You fish it for 20 minutes from first response, and then you move to the third. By the time you return to your first spot, roughly 40 to 60 minutes have passed. The cortisol window in those fish has fully reset. The same fish that shut off on you are now sitting in an open feeding state. Again, you are not finding new fish. You are cycling back through the same fish at the right moment in their biological clock. Mike Tanner said his clients on the 3-spot rotation nearly always outperformed clients on nearby boats who stayed in one location all day. Not because he knew better water. He was often rotating the same coves that other guides had marked productive for years. He outperformed because he understood the timer, and they were waiting out a window that was never going to open while they sat there. The surface reading skill works alongside the rotation to sharpen your timing further. Active feeding in largemouth produces surface signals before you ever see a strike. Small bait fish breaking the surface in nervous bursts is the clearest indicator. It means something below is pushing them upward. That is a largemouth in a pre-feeding state working the water column. That fish has not triggered its cortisol response yet. It is in the window right now. When you see surface bait activity, your clock starts from that moment, not from when you cast, from when you saw the bait fish move. Get your presentation in front of that fish inside the next 3 minutes, because the window that was already open when you arrived started before you got there. For catfish, the surface reading is different. Catfish do not push bait to the surface the way largemouth do. What you're watching for in catfish water is subtle current seam activity, small debris collecting at the edge of a slack water pocket. Slight surface boils near the bottom in shallower water. These signals indicate catfish repositioning along the bottom, which almost always precedes active feeding behavior by 10 to 15 minutes. If you see those signals and you are not already positioned, you have a narrow window. Get your bait on the bottom in the current seam before that repositioning completes. The cost of this entire system is exactly $0, a watch or a phone timer, 3 spots that you have already fished before, the knowledge that the fish did not leave and the bite did not die. The clock just moved past a window you did not know was closing. Now compare that to what the industry has built around the same problem. Premium fishing apps at $25 per month, showing you bite forecasts that are built on weather and moon data and have no mechanism for cortisol cycles at all, full day, guided trips at $300 plus, where the guide moves you every 20 minutes and never explains the reason why. New lure systems marketed specifically for when the bite dies. As though a different plastic worm is the solution to a hormonal recovery window. None of those products fix the actual problem, because the actual problem is biological and it has a biological solution. Rotate on a timer, read the surface before you cast. Return to your starting spot after 45 to 60 minutes. That is the complete system Dr. Krauss put it plainly in her 2014 paper. She wrote that the most common angler error in freshwater recreational fishing is misattributing the end of a feeding window to location failure. The fish are still there, the biology just needs time. Give it the time and then be back in position when it resets. The guides who charge $300 a day already know this. They just move you without explaining why. Now you know why. Which means you do not need the guide to have the same result. You need to watch 3 spots and 20 minutes of patience at each one. That is the entire system, and it costs nothing to run. And if you want the full system for reading, water timing your trips, and understanding what the fish are doing at every point in the day, inside the angler's vault, there are 8 modules including saw inner theory, barometric pressure, water temperature, and a complete annual calendar with moon overlays. Everything that pairs with the biology you just learned. Scan the QR code in the top left corner, or click the first link in the description. The complete system is inside the angler's vault.